Hello, Facebook friends and family. Welcome once again. This is Victoria Cooper, aka Angelic Anointing. And today I just wanted to visit with you briefly about what was dropped in my spirit this morning after paying great attention to what was released in the news and in social media regarding the latest series of events. We all know about the altercation that took place in McKinney, Texas with the overzealous police officer and the teenage students who were predominantly of African American descent. And on a more local level, because that was a state level, on a more local level, we had the issue with the public school teacher, elementary teacher, who expressed a very racially biased opinion or comment on social media that drew local news attention. And as a result of that, you've seen a series of different things trigger and take place. And so I just want to share my topic tonight. And I'm looking over here because all of my notes are over here to the left of me. And so my title of discussion or topic of discussion is "Do not react to the vices of the enemy." And I shared this on my Facebook page this morning, and it's titled "Recognize the Voice and Actions of the Enemy." As we become closer to the appointed hour in which Jesus will return to claim his bride, I am witnessing the enemy using a multitude of people to create situations where the people of God will slip and sin or react to unjust gestures and comments. And this pretty much validates what we've been seeing here in the media. As people of God, we must be watchful and mindful that responding to the enemy is his vice to block our interest into heaven. And just because someone else sins against us, we are not to sin in return to seek revenge. Remember, Christ said, "Vengeance is his." Just know that the enemy is merely revealing himself unto us. We are to rebuke him and keep moving. Keep it moving, people of God. And so to support that, I went to scriptures, James 4:7, which reads, "So humble yourselves before God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you." And so going back into the literal right now, what's happening in the state of Texas, what's happening in Lubbock, Texas, I want to touch on the McKinney incident where we had the students who were in the gated community at a community local pool, and just a series of events that took place and became blown out of proportion. And so there was a lot of footage that was shared in social media or on social media about the actions or displaying the actions of this Dallas police officer. And so with that being said, a lot of times you have to ask the question, what happened that we didn't see in the video footage that triggered all of this chaos? Now, we all know that God is not the author of confusion, neither is he the author of chaos. And he said in his word that he is decent and in order. And so when things become amok and astray, we need to know that that's not of him, and he doesn't dwell in that mess. If anything, he'll come in and straighten up the mess and make it orderly and put systems and structures in place that are of him, but not the chaos. And so the enemy was very busy in that incident. And we all know the end result is the officer resigned. His attorney requested a press meeting and read a letter of apology from him. And then that prompted what was shared in social media from the public educator, the elementary school teacher who was local. And in her post, she said, "This makes me angry. This officer should not have had to resign. I'm going to just go ahead and say it. The blacks are the one causing the problems and this racial tension. I guess that's what happens when you flunk out of school and have no education. I'm sure their parents are just as guilty for not knowing what their kids were doing, or knew it and didn't care. I'm almost to the point of wanting them all segregated on one side of town so they can hurt each other and leave the innocent people alone." I didn't know she had that kind of authority and power. And then she stated, "Maybe the 50s and 60s were really onto something. Now, let the bashing of my true and honest opinion begin. And as people of God, and in the United States, we have freedom of speech, and we have a right to express whatever we want, verbally, in writing, by text, by email, by blog, by social media, by cyber networking, whatever. We have that freedom of speech. But we also have to be careful that by profession, we live in glass houses. And because we live in glass houses or fish bowls or bubbles, whatever you want to call it, we have to remain transparent, and we have to be very careful of what we do and say, such that it isn't misconstrued into something that we didn't mean. Now, there was a lot expressed here. It started out enabling and supporting the actions of the McKinney officer and the attempt to justify why he should not have had to resign. If we just check our recent history, we've seen a series of white police officers who have gunned down and shot and taken the lives of unarmed young African American males. And this is not just in one geographical area. This is across the United States, east to west, north to south. This has been an ongoing trend. And again, just to support what I initially said, the enemy is busy, and people of God, we really need to be careful how we express ourselves and how we react to situations, because the devil wants to prompt a negative behavior. And so as a result of that, this fourth grade teacher at Bennett stated or shared a letter of apology according to KCBD. It says, "First, to anyone of any race that I have offended, I sincerely apologize. That was not my intent. I let my emotions get the best of me, and instead of taking a deep breath, vented in an inappropriate way. I am truly sorry. I don't want my comments to reflect poorly on my district or campus, as the words came from me, not them. Friendship and Bennett are amazing places full of people, such as teachers, administrators, custodial staff, cafeteria staff, parents, and others who love, care about, and go the extra mile for all students, regardless of race. As a teacher and lifelong educator, I strive to do the same. I always tell my students that once they are my student, they will always be my child. As an educator, I do teach my students about treating all people fairly and with dignity. I regret that my words are now calling that into question. I can and will use this situation as a real-world example of how emotions and words can cause hurt to others. I am ashamed of my post. As I look back and reflect, I see how hurtful those words sounded. It is my hope that my sincere apology will be accepted. Thank you." And then I don't need to say the name of the teacher. You can blog this. You can go to your media news sites and locate this information. And so again, my reminder to you is do not react to the vices of the enemy. And I want to support that with Matthews 15 and 18. "But the things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart, and these defile them." And I placed emphasis on the word defile. And so I want to give the definition of defile. Defile means to make foul, dirty, or unclean, to pollute, taint, or debase, to make impure, to desecrate, or to sully, as in a person's reputation. And so if you want to continue cross-referencing biblical text, you can go to Proverbs 4 and 23, where it says, "Above all else," let me get my screens back. "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." And that just validates Matthew 15 and 18, where it says what comes out of a person's mouth comes from the heart. You know, my grandmother used to always say, "Child, what's in you is going to come out of you." And this pretty much supports her cliche. We can also go to Matthew 12 and 34. It says, "The brood of vipers," in reference to snakes. "How can you who are evil say anything good? For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. And so if your heart is full of evil, when you open your mouth to speak, evil will eventually roll off your tongue, roll off your lips. You go to Matthew 15:11, what goes into someone's mouth does not defile them. So what we put into our bodies is not what makes us foul or defile. But what comes out of their mouth, that is what defiles them. Matthew 15:17. Don't you see that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then out of the body? And this is just saying that, again, supporting 15 and 11. What we put in and chew and swallow and digest and then relieve ourselves of is not what affects what's in our heart. Okay? In Mark 7:20, he went on, what comes out of a person is what defiles them. And that's Jesus speaking. James 3:6, the tongue is also a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. And so when we've got scripture that supports that the tongue cannot be tamed and that the tongue is uncontrollable. And so with that, we need to, as people of God, process what we're going to say before we speak it. Is it hurtful? Is it offensive? Is it of hatred? Is it becoming before God? Is it godly? Is it holy? Is it righteous? Is it going to stir up and manifest chaos and drama? As kids say, all that extra. And so you go back to Luke 19:23. His master replied, and this is how we reference the tongue being out of control. His master replied, I will judge you by your own words, you wicked servant. You knew, did you, that I'm a hard man, taking out what I did not put in and reaping what I did not sow. So he's basically saying, you know, you've turned on me and you spoke these words, and these very words that you spoke, they came out of you. Therefore, those words came from your heart, will be the very words that will be used to judge you. And so if we go back and look over all that's been shared in the media, all the things that have transpired in this domino effect, we had the McKinney incident. That's something in the state of Texas. Then we have the local incident in another school district with an elementary teacher. And again, there's these commonalities that come up. And one is defile, the word defile, the word heart, the word words, tongue, judgment, and actions. And so people of God, there's something in play here. And the enemy attempts to deceive us through our mental ability and wants to play tricks on the mind. And we have to be strong. We have to walk out every day totally equipped and in the full armor of God. And with that being said, we need to make sure that we don't respond, and if we must respond, that we respond accordingly. So going back to the topic that all of that I've shared with you tonight is, do not react to the vices of the enemy. We need to think before we speak. And once again, people of God, I thank you for taking time to listen to me. And I will get back with you in the very near future. Feel free to share my video. Feel free to comment, inbox me, contact me. And God bless. Good night.